Author and journalist Eric Douglas recently posted a two-part long document about Deep and what they're doing with their Sentinel program. So because it's so long and because it's a two-part thing, I've also broke up these AI-generated interviews about this topic and about this document. And so this is part one, and the document will be also linked in the description below.
Welcome to Colonize the Ocean podcast, where we discuss oceanic colonization, exploration, and education with your hosts Adam Jewell and Brendan Traxler.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Okay, great. Well, today we're going deep, literally, into the world of deep sea exploration.
Ooh, sounds exciting.
It is. And specifically, we're going to be talking about these emerging deep sea habitats.
Oh, wow. So like underwater cities.
Yeah, kind of like moving from just those quick glimpses, in a cramped submersible, to actually like scientists living down there.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, on the ocean floor, full time.
Full time. Wow, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of a mind-blowing concept. And we're basing this deep dive on an article by Eric Douglas.
Okay, cool.
So I guess to start off, where did this whole idea of like living underwater even come from?
Well, I think it's always kind of been a dream, hasn't it? But I guess in terms of like real attempts, you got to go back to people like Jacques Cousteau.
Oh, of course. Yeah, the conch shelf experiments.
Exactly.
I remember like seeing pictures of those, the underwater houses. And
yeah.
Those are just temporary, right?
Yeah, those were temporary setups. But I mean, that was back in the 1960s.
Yeah.
In the Red Sea.
Right.
And they were living at like 100 meters deep for weeks.
Wow.
So, I mean, it wasn't just a publicity stunt.
Oh, no.
I mean, it was really showing that people could actually work and live underwater.
Yeah, that's amazing. Weeks underwater. I can't even imagine, like, the decompression involved in that.
Oh, yeah.
Just thinking about, like, coming up from a regular dive.
Yeah.
You have to do it slowly to avoid the bends.
Totally. And at those depths.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be a major, like, factor.
Right.
A constraint and a safety issue.
Yeah. So did anyone try and go deeper or stay longer?
Yeah. So that's where you move on to sort of the next phase.
Okay.
There was this guy, Dr. Peter Bennett.
Go.
And he was working in the 1970s.
Okay.
With these things called Atlantis trial.
Atlantis trials.
Yes.
So
what is that?
it was basically like simulating these extreme depths on the surface. So not actually going underwater.
No, but using like hyperbaric chambers.
Oh, right. Like those pressurized rooms.
Yeah.
I've heard of those.
Yeah.
For treating divers with the bends, right?
Exactly. But like taken to a whole new level.
Yeah.
I mean, they were simulating the pressure at like 685 meters deep.
Wow. That's deeper than some skyscrapers.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a big part of what they were looking at is how much can the human body actually take?
Right.
And they discovered some really interesting things.
Like what?
Well, like this thing called high pressure nervous syndrome.
High pressure nervous syndrome. Never heard of that.
Yeah, it's called HPNS for short. And it can cause like tremors, dizziness,
Oh, wow.
even hallucinations.
Hallucinations.
Yeah.
It's not just physically demanding.
Yeah.
It can mess with your mind.
Yeah, but they were trying to find like solutions to this.
Right.
They were experimenting with different breathing gases.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Like Trimix.
Trimix.
Yeah, it uses helium to reduce the effects of nitrogen.
Oh, okay. So basically like a breathing cocktail.
Yeah, so you could stay deeper, longer.
Wow. Without going bonkers.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. So we've gone from like weeks underwater
Right.
to potentially months, maybe even years. It's amazing how much progress they made.
Yeah, they really laid the groundwork.
Yeah. For what we're talking about today with the habitats.
It really is amazing, yeah.
So let's fast forward a bit. What happened after these early experiments? Like, did anyone actually manage to stay underwater for a really long time?
Well, yeah. I mean, there have been some incredible achievements since then.
Oh, okay.
For instance, Fabien Cousteau, Jacques' grandson.
Right.
He continued the family legacy.
Yeah.
In 2014, he did a 31-day stay.
31 days.
Yeah.
Underwater. Where was this?
This was in the Aquarius habitat.
The Aquarius habitat.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's off the coast of Florida.
Okay.
Not as deep as some of the other stuff we've talked about.
Oh, okay.
It's only about 63 feet deep.
63 feet. Okay.
Still pretty deep.
Yeah. But it allowed them to do all this research on the coral reefs.
Oh, cool. So what were they researching? Like just observing the fish or?
It was way more than that. They were looking at coral reef health, pollution, even like the psychological effects of living underwater for so long.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So did anyone try and beat that 31-day record?
They did.
Yeah.
So there was this guy, Dr. Joe DeTore.
Okay.
And he spent 100 days in the Jules Verne Undersea Lodge.
100 days. Where's that?
That's off the coast of Key Largo in Florida.
Oh, okay. Wow, 100 days. That's like living in an underwater hotel.
It is, kind of. It's a submerged hotel. And he was studying the long-term effects of living underwater.
Oh, cool. So like on the human body.
Yeah. And he collected all this data, did all these experiments.
Wow, okay.
Even had virtual meetings with people.
Wow. So it's clear that we're not just like dipping our toes in the water anymore.
No.
We're talking about like building outposts on the ocean floor. Yeah.
Exactly.
So why? Like, what are the benefits of actually living down there?
That's a great question. And it's a really interesting shift. People are starting to realize that sending down these expensive research vessels, just for these short little trips, it's not really that efficient.
Yeah. It's like if you're studying the rainforest, you don't just do a quick helicopter landing. You need to be there.
Exactly.
Really understand it.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay, cool. So what are some of the projects that are in the works?
Well, there are two big ones.
Okay.
There's Fabien Cousteau's Proteus.
Okay.
And then there's Deep's Sentinel.
Okay. What are those?
Those are both projects to build these permanent, deep sea stations.
Oh, wow. Permanent.
Yeah. And they're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Cool. And you said they were modular.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like you have a core structure.
Okay.
And then you add all these different modules.
Oh, okay. So like underwater Legos. Kind of, yeah.
Okay. So how deep are we talking here?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
They're using this thing called saturation diving.
Saturation diving.
Yeah. So basically you live at the same pressure as the water around you.
Oh, I see. So no more worrying about decompression.
Exactly.
That's amazing. But are there other risks? Like living at those depths?
Oh, of course. There are still a lot of risks involved.
Like what?
Well, you have things like oxygen toxicity.
Oh, right.
From being exposed to high oxygen levels for a long time.
Yeah.
And then there's the psychological effects of being isolated for such long periods.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
But the potential benefits must be pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
If people are willing to take those kinds of risks.
Imagine having scientists down there.
Yeah.
All the time, constantly researching.
Yeah.
Observing marine life, maybe even discovering new species.
Wow. It's like those old sci-fi stories.
Right.
About underwater cities. It's actually becoming reality. So why go to all this trouble to live on the ocean floor? Like, what are the practical applications?
Well, one of the big ones is understanding climate change.
Okay.
And how it's impacting the ocean.
Right.
Because, the ocean plays a huge role in regulating the Earth's climate.
Right. And it's being affected by all these things.
Exactly.
Like rising temperatures and acidification.
Yeah. You hear about coral bleaching.
Yeah.
All the time.
So having these permanent research stations could give us a way better understanding of what's happening.
Exactly.
And what we can do about it.
Yep. And then there's also the potential for discovering new species.
Oh, yeah.
We've only explored like 20% of the ocean depths.
Wow.
There's a whole world down there.
That's amazing. It's like having an alien planet right here.
I know.
So what else? What other reasons are driving this push to build these habitats?
Well, besides like the scientific discoveries, there's also the potential for medical breakthroughs. Yeah, a lot of marine organisms, they produce these bioactive compounds that could be used to treat diseases.
So like new medicines.
Yeah, exactly.
From deep sea creatures.
Exactly.
Wow, that's incredible.
Like there's already this drug, saconitide.
Okay.
It's used to treat chronic pain.
Right.
And it was derived from the venom of a cone snail.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So like the cure for cancer could be lurking in some deep-sea creature somewhere.
Who knows?
Wow.
The possibilities are endless.
That's pretty amazing. So if it's got all these potential benefits, why haven't we done this before?
Well, there's a few reasons.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, there's the technological limitations.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And then, obviously, the cost.
Right.
And also, we don't really know that much about the long-term effects.
Right, of living in that kind of environment.
Exactly.
So basically, it's been too expensive, too difficult, and too risky.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
But things are changing.
How so?
Like technology is advancing,
right.
Material science is getting better,
Yeah.
and we're learning more about human physiology.
Okay.
So it's becoming more and more feasible.
So it's not just like a sci-fi dream anymore. This could actually happen.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. Okay. But, I mean, what about the cost? Building these habitats.
Oh, I know.
Maintaining them.
Yeah, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
But, think about the alternative.
Right.
Sending all those research vessels down there.
Right.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
That's not cheap either.
Right. It's like paying rent versus
Exactly.
owning your own place.
Exactly.
Okay.
Plus, these habitats could generate their own power.
Really?
Using renewable resources.
Oh, okay.
Like solar and wave power.
Oh, cool. So
Yeah.
they could be totally self-sufficient.
That's the goal, yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they could even send power back to the surface.
Wow. Okay. But what about the risks? We talked about oxygen toxicity, the isolation.
Yeah.
What about other health concerns?
Well, yeah, that's why we need to do so much research.
Yeah.
Like, we need to understand what happens when you're exposed to high levels of carbon dioxide.
Oh, right. That builds up in enclosed spaces.
Exactly. And we also need to look at how pressure affects the body over long periods.
Right.
I mean, it can affect your mood, your sleep,
Oh, wow.
even how you think.
So it's like a completely different world down there.
It really is.
Okay. Sounds like a lot more research is needed
Yeah,
before we start sending people down to live.
totally.
Yeah.
And that's what these projects are doing.
Okay.
Like Proteus and Sentinel.
Right.
They're not just about building the habitats, they're about doing the research to make sure it's safe.
Oh, okay. So it's a step-by-step process.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense. But even with all the planning in the world,
Yeah,
things could go wrong.
right.
What about the logistics?
Oh, yeah.
Like getting supplies and equipment down there,
I know.
hundreds of meters below the surface.
All valid concerns.
Yeah.
But that's what the engineers and scientists are working on,
Okay.
figuring out those challenges.
So it's a complex undertaking,
Yeah.
but the rewards could be enormous,
Oh, yeah.
like a whole new frontier
Totally.
right here on our own planet.
I know. Who knows what we'll find down there?
Yeah.
New life forms.
Yeah.
New energy sources.
Right.
Maybe even solutions to some of our biggest problems.
That's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm officially hooked. But let's bring it back to reality for a minute.
Okay.
What are some of the more immediate applications of these habitats?
Well, one area that's really promising is marine conservation. So, I mean, you could have these research stations in like really important ecosystems,
Okay.
and scientists could like monitor the changes over time,
Right.
identify threats.
So instead of just like reacting to problems,
Yeah.
we could be proactive about protecting them.
Exactly. It's like having,
Yeah.
a team of underwater park rangers.
Yeah.
Right.
That are just constantly there.
They're constantly patrolling, monitoring.
Okay, cool. So it's not just about protecting what's already there.
Right.
It's also about potentially like
Yeah.
restoring damaged ecosystems.
Exactly. Think about it. You could use these habitats
Okay.
as nurseries for coral reefs
Oh, wow.
or breeding grounds for endangered species.
That's a really cool idea.
Right.
Like we could rebuild these damaged ecosystems
Yeah.
and give these species a chance.
Exactly. I mean, it sounds like sci-fi,
Yeah.
but it's happening.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking of sci-fi, let's talk about the habitats themselves.
Okay.
We talked about the modular design.
Right.
But what's the tech like? What would it be like to actually live in one of these things?
Okay. So picture this. A big pressurized structure
Okay.
with these huge viewing domes.
Wow.
You'd have panoramic views of the ocean depths.
Okay. Right.
Inside, comfortable living quarters,
Right.
state-of-the-art labs,
Cool.
even like rec areas. Oh, wow. So it's not just about survival.
No.
It's about comfort, sustainability,
Exactly.
underwater apartments
Yeah.
with ocean views. What about like the practical stuff?
Right.
Like power.
Okay, yeah. Power is a big one. So one solution is renewable energy.
Oh.
Think like solar panels
Right.
on the surface beaming energy down.
Wow. So harnessing the power of the ocean itself.
Exactly.
Cool. So these habitats could be totally self-sufficient.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Maybe even generate extra energy.
Potentially, yeah.
Wow. That's really sustainable. What about food?
Food, okay.
Oh,
Aquaculture is a big one.
Aquaculture.
Underwater farming.
Oh, right. Like growing stuff down there.
Yeah. Imagine, like, vegetables, fruit,
wow,
even fish,
yeah,
all right there in the habitat.
So like a completely self-contained ecosystem.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. But what about the people?
Okay, yeah.
How do you choose who gets to live in one of these places?
Right, because it's not for everyone?
No. You need people who are, scientifically skilled.
Okay.
But also mentally resilient, adaptable.
Right.
Comfortable being in close quarters with others.
So it's not just about having, like, a PhD. You got to have the right personality.
Totally. Like, imagine a mix of an astronaut, a deep-sea diver, and, like, a social scientist.
Wow. I don't know how many people fit that description.
Right.
But, I mean, it really highlights that this is like a team effort.
It is.
It's not just one field.
No, it's scientists, engineers, psychologists, designers, all working together.
Wow, that's really cool. But with all this amazing stuff, we can't forget about the risks.
Right.
Living in that environment.
Yeah.
It's still pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about oxygen toxicity.
Right.
The pressure effects, the isolation.
Right.
But there's other things too.
Like what else could go wrong?
Well, things can malfunction.
Right.
Equipment could break down.
Yeah.
There could be damage to the structure. I mean, it's a harsh environment down there.
Yeah.
High pressure, seawater that can corrode things.
Right.
You might even encounter dangerous marine life.
It does sound like a lot could go wrong.
Yeah. So safety is super important.
Okay.
You need backup systems, escape pods.
Like a lifeboat on a ship.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you got to train, run simulations.
Right, to prepare for anything.
Yeah, because we're really pushing the limits here, and safety has to come first.
Okay, that makes sense. But all this talk of danger is kind of freaking me out.
I know.
So let's talk about something positive.
Okay.
Like, what would it actually be like
to
live and work in a habitat?
Okay, well, imagine this. Waking up to these insane views of the ocean depths.
Okay.
You could spend your day researching, exploring canyons, observing sea creatures.
That does sound pretty cool.
Right.
But wouldn't it get lonely down there?
Well, I mean, we have technology now.
Okay.
You'd have internet access. You could talk to family, friends, colleagues.
Right, so you're not totally cut off.
Exactly. Plus, you've got your crewmates.
Oh, yeah.
Living and working together.
So it's like being on a spaceship.
Kinda, yeah.
But instead of going to another planet.
Right.
You're exploring our own.
It's a different kind of adventure.
Yeah.
And the potential for discoveries is huge.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal. It's risky. It's tough.
Yeah.
But it's also really exciting.
It is?
But realistically,
yeah,
are these habitats going to happen anytime soon?
Well, like we said, technology is getting better, and it's getting cheaper to build underwater.
Okay.
So it's looking more and more likely.
So we could see this in our lifetime.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow, that's incredible.
And it would change how we see the ocean and our place in the world.
That's a really cool thought. Okay, so we've talked about a lot.
We have.
The history, the challenges, the benefits.
Yeah, the tech, the risks.
It's been a fascinating journey so far.
It has.
And I'm excited to see what happens next.
Me too.
But before we go any further, let's take a moment to recap.
Okay, and we're back. Still with me on this deep dive into deep sea habitats.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. We've been talking about all these practical aspects, but I can't help but think about, like, what it would actually feel like to live down there.
Oh, absolutely.
In one of these underwater cities.
Yeah, it really is a whole different way of thinking about the deep sea.
Totally. Not just a hostile alien environment.
Right.
But, like, a potential home.
A new frontier for humanity, yeah.
And it's funny, because I was thinking, in some ways, isn't the deep sea the most Earth-like environment we have left?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Like the conditions where life first emerged.
Yeah. A lot of scientists think that studying the deep sea is like looking back in time.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so we've got this incredible scientific potential.
Yeah.
The sustainability angle. But how do you actually build these habitats? Well, with both Proteus and Sentinel, they're really focusing on modularity.
Right, the underwater Legos.
Exactly. Start with a core structure.
Okay.
And then add modules as needed. Living quarters, labs, even those underwater greenhouses.
Okay, I can picture it now. This network of pods.
Right.
Growing and adapting over time. But what about power? How do you keep the lights on?
That's one of the biggest challenges, yeah. And they're exploring all these renewable energy options.
So, like, using the ocean itself.
Exactly. Solar panels on the surface beaming energy down.
Right.
Wave energy converters, capturing that constant motion of the sea.
Wow, living off the grid. Could these habitats be completely self-sufficient?
That's the hope. Maybe even generate surplus energy.
Wow. And send it back to the surface.
Potentially, yeah.
And that's sustainable living. Okay. But we can't forget about the people down there.
Right.
What kind of person thrives in an underwater city? It's not for everyone.
You're absolutely right. You need people who are not just scientifically brilliant.
Yeah.
But also incredibly resilient.
Right.
Adaptable, comfortable living in close quarters.
So it's not enough to have a PhD?
No. You need that right stuff for underwater life.
That's a tough combination to find.
It really is. A blend of astronaut, deep sea diver, and social scientist all rolled into one.
Wow. And that makes you realize this isn't just one field.
No.
It's scientists, engineers, psychologists, designers, everyone working together.
It's a massive collaborative effort, pushing the boundaries of what we can achieve together.
You know, it all keeps coming back to that rainforest analogy.
It really does.
It just highlights how limited our exploration of the ocean has been so far.
Yeah, just dipping our toes in.
Exactly. And these habitats, they're like finally setting foot on that unexplored continent.
Right. Ready to discover all its secrets.
That's that age-old drive to explore, right?
Absolutely. The curiosity, the wonder. Who knows? Maybe someday these habitats will be so common that we won't even think twice about it.
Imagine underwater cities as normal as cities on land.
It sounds crazy, but then again, a lot of things did once.
That's true. It's amazing how we keep pushing boundaries. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
History, challenges, technology, the human side of it all.
The future of deep sea living. It's a pretty exciting time.
It really is. And for all you listeners out there, here's a final thought to leave you with. What mysteries do you think are waiting down there? And what role will WE play in this underwater future? Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep that curiosity burning. Until next time, deep divers.